As much as we enjoy RC racing, most of us don't really have the time and money to buy all new equipment every time something new comes out. Lots of times I'll hear people say they can't really afford to race very often due to how expensive everything can be, and I can't really blame them. $120 for a set of trucky tires really hurts. So what is one to do? Well, there are some things you can do in RC racing in general that can help save some money and allow you to buy more tires. In this video, I'll be showing you some of those things, and hopefully it'll get you to the track a little bit more often. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the sponsors of this channel, A-Main Hobbies, Peach State Hobbies, and Cow RC. Anything you guys purchase using the links and codes in those descriptions below will directly support me as well. Let us begin with the title part of this video, Buying Used. Buying used can seem extremely tempting for many reasons. For one, there's the aspect of the car already being built and broken in. This part won't really save us a lot in money, but it will save us a lot in time. Time that a lot of potential racers may not really have. For me, the Mayco MX-8E e-buggy took about 8 hours to build without prior knowledge of the platform. This is time one may want to spend with their loved ones during a week or weekend. Having a car that's already built by someone who knows what they're doing will help a lot in getting potential racers over that first hurdle. The next and more pressing benefit of buying used is the money side of things. You can find fairly good deals when people are looking to offload their RC rigs for various reasons. However, how much money you save will entirely depend on a few factors, one of which being brand, oddly enough. Think of this like going out to buy a used car. Certain brands and models tend to hold their value more than others for various reasons. These reasons could be whether or not the brand is popular, if it's an older model from a certain brand, or if that brand/model model is known for being very good and durable. These are reasons why techno vehicles in the US are so expensive on the used market. They tick all the boxes of a good used race vehicle. This leads me to the answer to the question, what brand used vehicle should I aim for in racing and RC? For 8 scale, I would aim for Techno, because like I said, it ticks all the aforementioned boxes. Mugen also is good because they don't really release cars that often, so fear of missing out, or FOMO, won't really be a factor, and they're probably the best and most durable pillowball car on the market in my opinion. S-Works and Associated are pretty good if you live on the East or West Coast respectively. For 10 scale, really just more of a toss-up between Associated, X-Ray, and Schumacher here in the US. I know things are different overseas. For example, X-Ray is more popular in places like Eastern Europe, as is Kyosho in places like France and Southeast Asia, but in my experience, these seem to be the most popular here where I am in the United States. Another thing to take into account when buying used is the condition the car appears to be in. Duh. Again, this is like buying a used car. Have the bearings been serviced or replaced? Have the shocks and discs been rebuilt regularly in decent intervals? Has the car been cleaned regularly with the correct cleaner? And that's just the things related to the chassis. There's a lot more to ask when it comes to electronics, and especially engines if you're buying a nitro car used. This is where 8 scale cars kind of get shafted a little bit, as 8 scale buggies in general get subjected to a lot more punishment than 10 scale cars do. More power is being put through them, and more forces are being exerted upon them. As such, buying a 10 scale car on the used market tends to be a bit less of a gamble. The general rule for buying the 10 scale cars in terms of buying them used goes like this. If it's a carpet car, more damage has been done internally than externally. If it's a dirt car, it may look more haggard on the outside due to the dust and coarse dirt, but the internal bits tend to be less strained from the lower grip on average compared to carpet. Next up, we have the saving money part of RC racing. And what better way to talk about saving money than talking about the number one consumable we as racers buy? Tires are probably the most important part of your car setup, and depending on where you race and how often you race, can cost you a lot of money. Like I said at the beginning of this video, a full set of tires from a bigger company like AKA or J Concepts for a truckie can cost upwards of $100, not including shipping. For many, this simply isn't in the cards, especially when those tires only last for so long. Even buggy tires for an 8 scale buggy can cost about $75, not including shipping. Thing is though, this only really applies to bigger tire brands when you don't have some kind of deal with them. I know for a fact most J Concepts drivers pay a lot less for tires than non-drivers do. Same thing with companies like Hot Race in the United States, ProMotion, and the aforementioned AKA and J Concepts. There are companies out there that do produce good tires for those looking to save as much as possible, and even though they don't have the big names behind them, it's precisely because of that these tires are cheaper than the big names. The 3 most common ones I personally see in this little corner of the Southeast US would be VP Pro, which I've heard through the grapevine that they source the rubber from the same place that J Concepts does, even though it's treated differently. Dialed RC, which probably has the most pedigree in this part of the US, with their drivers doing very well on a regional level. And of course Ogo, the one I personally use for their simplistic tread designs and good compounds. There are some other brands out there like GRP tires here in the US that are cheaper than the ones even I listed, and I am aware that tires from brands like Hot Race in the old world can be had for much cheaper as well, but these three ones are personally the ones that I have most experience with and feel the most comfortable recommending. Next up, we have things you should probably avoid buying/doing if you want to save a bit in RC racing. Firstly, we're going to talk about Hopups. Now I know that a lot of us in the RC community love to customize and modify our cars to make them our own. And yes, titanium turnbuckles to match your paint scheme does look really cool. However, they are generally very expensive and in most scenarios, unnecessary. This goes for most other upgrade parts that are used by most higher level drivers. If you can't do a 5 to 6 minute stint on the track without a mistake, any amount of time you save via weight saving parts like screw kits and turnbuckles will be nullified by said mistakes you make on the track. Of course, there are some things you can buy that are straight durability upgrades like aluminum hubs and spindles, but those are just that. Durability mods, not speed mods. Use the money you would have spent on upgrades and hop-ups on different shock and diff oils, springs, and crucially, tires. This leads me on to what you should be doing to save money. For one, try to stick to one class of race car. The two main classes I'd run for 10th and 8th scale would be two-wheel buggy for 10th scale and e-buggy for 8th scale. Both of these classes are the cheapest and most popular of their respective scales, and both are really great to learn with. It doesn't really make sense to stretch your means out to run more than one class unless you regularly go to big races where downtime between runs is very long. Then again, if you go to races like these on a regular basis, then money probably isn't an issue for you. Focusing on one class and one car will allow you to keep that car in top shape with things like diff and shock rebuilds, along with being able to afford wear items like chassis and crucially, once again, say it with me, tires. You can accrue a pretty hefty amount of tires for one car if you only want to run type. If you only run buggy classes, you only need to worry about buggy wheels and tires. To put it shortly, maintaining one car well is cheaper than maintaining more than one poorly. If you only plan or can only race a certain amount of times a month, then planning said few months and what races you plan to attend would be very helpful as well. Now this leads us to what question of what you should prioritize, large races or club races. In my opinion, club races are much better in terms of general RC experience than bigger races are. If you do plan on going to a big race, try to go to one in your general geographic area. For example, as of me writing the script, both the Wicked Weekend race and Peach State classes are taking place here in Georgia. As such, those races I don't have to travel as far to attend them. I know this can't really be helped if you live literally in the middle of nowhere, but if you can try to stick to either smaller trophy style races and or larger races that happen to be close to you, you should be good. Even if you don't plan on racing at these big events, it may be conducive to go to one of them anyway for a few reasons. Well, one main reason in this case. Usually at these big races you'll see a lot of mobile hobby shops looking to sell a lot of consumables, tires, glow plugs, spare parts, and other things of the sort. Another thing they sometimes sell are used kits and electronics for ridiculously low prices. There's also the chance you'll find a lot of new and old stock at these hobby shops as well. What I mean by new old stock is that an old kit that hasn't been sold. Even though it may not be the latest and greatest, it usually be sold for a significant discount. Take for example a Techno ET48 2.0. It may not be the 2.2, but it's over $200 cheaper than the 2.2. And for a lot of people, that could be a price drop they need to buy a race bred kit. And let's be honest, even though the 2.2 may be a more updated truck, you'll be hard pressed to feel any difference if you're a novice or even lower level sportsman driver trying to save a few shillings. The last thing I want to talk about is related to being social. I'll be honest, unless you are absolutely loaded in cash and time, you're going to need some friends in RC. I've personally been gifted many items in RC racing, from tools to tires to spare parts. There's plenty of people out there in the RC space who are willing to help others in some way. It also helps that racers usually like to offload their old stuff at really cheap prices just so they have an excuse to get out the new stuff. Just look at how many people are trying to sell their 74s now that the B84 from Team Associated is out. Point is, racers are willing to help others most of the time, especially friends. So if you need help with some tires, or perhaps a spare part that you need to borrow, or even just need an extra car to run for the weekend, don't be afraid to ask and make some friends. Before you go though, I have something to share. I currently have a few t-shirts coming in with this design on them and these sizes and quantities. If you would like one, be sure to DM me on Facebook or Instagram with your shirt size and I'll get one for you. Also, if you'd like to support me another way, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank my active patrons Michael Williams, Dave Armstrong, Rob Bedingfield, Caden Merckx, Ian Petrie, Jeffrey Kunz, Shane T. Ruth, Gable Barber, Freeman Racing Team, and my channel members Jeffrey Kunz again, Ralesk86, Claymore RC, Brian G, and especially Morrison Watt. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.